Before radio, long-distance communication was bound to the physical world. Messages moved only as fast as a person, a horse, or a steamship could move. Signal fires and flags were fast, but the moment you lost line of sight, you lost the connection. As the late 19th century exploded with global trade, the world grew desperate for a way to coordinate across vast oceans instantly. Welcome to Lost Sparks History, where we highlight the innovators who reshaped our world, but whose full stories you might not know. In this episode, we're looking at Guglielmo Marconi. Marconi is likely somebody you have heard of before, but you may not know his whole story. While historians still fiercely dispute who actually invented radio, almost no one disputes that it was Marconi's cutthroat business instincts that forced it into the mainstream. Guglielmo Marconi was born into a unique intersection of wealth and culture on April 25, 1874. He was the son of Giuseppe, an Italian aristocrat, and Annie Jameson, an heiress to the Irish Whiskey dynasty. This background gave him two massive advantages. First, his family's wealth meant he didn't really need a job. He could spend his youth tinkering in a private laboratory. Second, he was a dual citizen, perfectly fluent in both Italian and English. Bypassing traditional universities, Marconi was a self-taught loner who devoured books in his father's library. The ultimate spark came in 1894 when he read about Heinrich Hertz's discovery of invisible electromagnetic waves. While academic scientists saw these waves as a quirky laboratory illusion, Marconi saw a commercial empire that could eliminate physical wires forever. At just 20 years old, he began experimenting in his family's attic, making three critical modifications to Hertz's work. Number one, he refined the coherer, an early radio signal detector, by using a vacuum-sealed tube packed with fine nickel and silver fillings to drastically increase its sensitivity. Number two, he grounded the transmitter, using the Earth itself as a conductor. And number three, he discovered that raising the antenna high into the air massively multiplied the signal's range. By 1895, he had successfully bounced a signal over a hill on his family's estate, proving that these waves could bend around physical objects. But inventing it was really only about 10% of the battle. Marconi offered his device to the Italian Ministry of Post and Telegraphs, but their response? They told him they saw no practical application for wireless radio. This is where his dual citizenship and his mother's network changed history. Realizing Italy wasn't buying, his mother packed his bags and sent him to London. Her cousin, an influential engineer named Henry Jameson Davis, immediately hooked Marconi up with William Preece, the chief engineer of the British Post Office. Preece was mesmerized by the young Italian, but the British public and the scientific elite were deeply skeptical. How do you convince people to buy something that they can't even see? Marconi didn't just write papers. He staged high society spectacles. He conducted highly publicized trials across the Bristol Channel, intentionally inviting journalists. He wrapped his equipment in mysterious black boxes to create an aura of magic and protect his secrets. In 1897, at just 23 years old, he bypassed the slow-moving government bureaucracies and founded the Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company. Yet mainstream scientists still doubted him. They argued that because the Earth is a sphere, radio waves would simply shoot straight out into space rather than follow the curve of the globe. But to prove them wrong, Marconi knew he had to conquer the Atlantic. First, he crossed the English Channel, a 31-mile transmission between England and France. Then, in December 1901, perched on a freezing hill in Newfoundland, Marconi used a kite to hold a 150-foot antenna wire steady against brutal winds. Listening through a primitive earphone, he caught three faint clicks, the letter S in Morse code, sent all the way from Cornwall, England. He had bypassed the curvature of the Earth by unknowingly bouncing the signal off the ionosphere. To get people to use it, Marconi realized he had to create an ecosystem. He didn't just sell radio gear, he leased it. He actually built a brilliant, aggressive business model. The Marconi Company installed the hardware on ships and hired out their own trained operators. In 1909, Marconi won the Nobel Prize in Physics. But behind the scenes, a legal storm was already brewing. Genius inventor Nikola Tesla had held earlier patents for wireless technology. When Marconi was granted major U.S. patent rights in 1904, many whispered it was due to his wealthy financial backers, including Thomas Edison and Andrew Carnegie. Decades later, following Tesla's death, the U.S. Supreme Court would actually invalidate some of Marconi's core patents to resolve a wartime lawsuit. In 1912, his technology transitioned from a luxury commercial tool to a global necessity. When the RMS Titanic struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic, the two wireless operators on board, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, were not members of the ship's crew. They were actually corporate Marconi employees. As the ship sank, they stubbornly remained at their keys, tapping out the CQD and SOS distress signals into the frozen night. 58 miles away, the lone wireless operator on the Carpathia caught the stray signal just before going to bed. Because of that wireless link, the Carpathia rescued 705 survivors. Without it, those lifeboats would have drifted undetected in sub-zero waters, and the disaster would likely have claimed every single life on board. When the survivors of the Titanic arrived in New York, Marconi was greeted as a savior. The disaster directly triggered the Radio Act of 1912 and the International SOLAS, or Safety of Life at Sea Treaty. Governments worldwide stepped in and mandated what Marconi had been pushing for: 24-hour wireless watches on all ships and mandatory auxiliary battery power so radios could function even if the ship's engines died. Most inventors stop after one world-changing breakthrough, but in his 50s, Marconi did it again. He walked away from the massive, expensive, long-wave antennas of his youth. Instead, he discovered that high-frequency short waves could bounce off of the upper atmosphere to travel across the planet using a fraction of the power. He engineered a method to reflect and aim these waves like a searchlight, creating the beam system. This directional approach is the direct genetic ancestor of modern satellite arrays, microwave cell tower links, and radar. Wireless radio became the absolute foundation for the modern media age, giving birth to live entertainment broadcasting, television, aviation tracking, and eventually the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth protocols that run our lives today. When Marconi died in 1937 at the age of 63, the world paid him a tribute unmatched in human history. For 2 continuous minutes, wireless networks, commercial radio stations, and maritime transmitters across the globe went completely silent. It was the first and last time since his youth that the global airwaves were truly quiet. Thank you for joining us today at Lost Sparks History, and to learn more about Guglielmo Marconi, let me know who you want to hear about next. Don't forget to subscribe and like below, and I'll see you in our next video.